Hey everybody, welcome back. In this video, we're going to tool some Christmas tree ornaments since it's a Black Friday weekend when we're posting this video. We talked about it in a Monday video a little while back, but we're going to tool two Christmas ornaments. I've got one that's just what I call a Christmas ball, just a little ball decorations that you put on your tree, as well as a little Christmas tree ornament. I've drawn up two little patterns on here. We were going to do two separate videos, but this weekend's been really crazy, so went ahead and put them both together. It's just going to be a little bit easier that way to get that to you so that you can tool that. Some of y'all may have already found this, but you can get the free pattern download on our website at dgsaddlery.com. Just go into the online store, then go under the Leathercraft tab down to the free digital patterns. You'll find this pattern there free. You can just grab it, throw it in your cart there, and then check out. It won't charge you anything, and then you'll be able to download it right there. It will also send you an email with a link that you can download the file, print it out on your own home printer, and then you can tool along with us if you want to make some of these Christmas ornaments. Now, I did have dies made for both of these, and it's just something, an idea that we had that we may try to make this an annual deal. And so we were kind of crunched for time by the time we came up with the idea, so we just got a real simple, just a Christmas ball and a Christmas tree. Next year, we might draw up a completely new little shape and do an annual kind of commemorative Christmas ornament for you that you can get the free pattern from us here at DG Leathercraft, and then tool it yourself and have over the years, you know, going forward, maybe collect all of them and have those ornaments there as part of your tree at home. So, but in this video, we're going to tool both of these as two separate patterns. It's got the year on there. We're going to tool them up, and then of course, after you're done tooling them, you can paint them, dye them, do all kinds of different finish work, whatever you want to do. But in this video, we're just going to tool them. So let's go ahead and get started, and we're going to tool a couple ornaments. All right, guys, so we've got our Christmas tree here. We're going to go ahead and tool this one first, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you here how to transfer. You can transfer your pattern to any kind of tracing film. This is more of like a transfer film, tracing film that's got a little bit of plastic to it. It's not quite like tracing paper, but you can definitely use tracing paper if you would like. You're just going to have to fight the moisture in the leather a little bit. But anyway, we'll get this lined up here on our piece of leather best we can, and then we'll go ahead and trace all of these lines. And I'm going to start with the numbers here, and we'll trace all those in, and then we'll trace all the other lines in. We'll check our deal here. You want to always check before you completely remove your pattern. Always kind of pick it up, make sure you got all your lines in there. And so as you can see there, our lines look nice and even there. And so now we'll take our swivel knife. I'm just using a Berry King swivel knife here. He's got a lot of different sizes, a lot of different blades, things like that. But I think for the money, his is probably the most affordable, high quality knife here. There's more there's some out there that are way cheaper. There's some that are way more expensive. But I think for the money, he's a good quality knife that you can have and use professionally as a hobby for your entire career. However you're working leathercraft, this is a knife to have in my opinion. It's just a good everyday quality knife. I'm going to start carving this, and what I like to do when I'm carving in a pattern is I like to carve the letters, numbers, figures, brands, anything like that that's kind of the central piece of the artwork. I like to do that first. It does not make any difference, but that's just, in my mind, that's what I like to get in there. Make sure I've got those where I want them and they look the way I want them to look. And then we're going to start carving. What I'm going to do is I'm going to carve all the long lines only. So you'll see me carve these here. These are what I call long lines. You can usually tell because the tails float. They're not touching anything most of the time. And that's what I carve first, and then we'll carve the short lines, which would be this little line here, this little line, this line. I just like to do that so that you can begin to learn how to read patterns. That way most people have a problem with what side of the line to bevel on. That's a very common issue. And so I find that this is an easy way to kind of get you to begin to see what lines are what. And if you're new here to the channel and this is one of your first times watching any of the tooling, or maybe you're wanting to get into tooling, be sure and check out our other videos. We've got a ton of videos on here, mainly focused on floral carving. And when you're carving, you want to be sure that your knife is sharp and that it is cutting into the leather. So if you look there, you can see that that cut is open. It's not just pushing down or marking the leather, it's actually cutting the grain of the leather, and that's what you want. You want to be sure you're cutting the leather. Okay, so we've gotten all of our long lines cut. Now I'll go in and just cut my short lines in there. And I usually just call this shutting the gates. You're just kind of shutting the gates on that background now. And so we've gotten one side of this pattern carved, and so now we'll get this other side carved. So we got our pattern carved in now. Now we'll begin tooling that. I'm going to add just a little bit of water. You want to be sure that you've got some moisture in your leather, but you don't want to oversaturate it. A lot of folks will get their leather far too wet when they're tooling, and my rule of thumb is usually tell new people that are beginners in floral carving is when you think it's dry enough to tool, wait another 10 minutes, just because a lot of times folks just get it far too wet and it'll get real mushy on you. So you do want some stability in that leather. But I'm going to take this tool here. This is a lifter, Berry King lifter, and they've got all kinds of sizes. I recommend eventually getting all of them, but start with a small, medium, large, as you'll hear in other videos to go more in depth on tooling. But it's just a lifter. What it does is it helps us. You want to make sure you don't get the steep lifter. That is the one that's got a big swoop back here on the tail or on the heel. We want to make sure it's built just like that. That's just a standard lifter. And they're going to really just help you get into these tight little areas right here where we're getting into a rounded area. We don't want to try to stick a square beveler in there. We want to use the proper tool for the spot that you're beveling. So what we're going to do is take this size lifter and just put that wherever it fits. If you got bigger spots, you can skip those until we grab the bigger lifter. Okay, and now we'll grab a larger lifter. This one's just a little bigger, just a bigger radius. We'll go ahead and use that in these areas here. And I can even use them underneath this number 2, just to grab that. And now we're going to grab a beveler, and I'm going to grab the largest beveler I can use on this project. So this is a checkered beveler. Majority of my tools are Berry Kings, but I don't care what kind of tools you're using as long as they work for the job. I've got craft tool, I've got a bunch of different types of tools. Berry's just kind of my go-to as far as just a good quality stamp that does what I need it to do. And always remember, it's not the tool, it's the tooler. So you don't necessarily need a whole lot of fancy tools to be able to do floral carving. Tools do make your life easier, but they're not mandatory. You just need the right tool for what you're trying to accomplish. Now, real quick, I'm not going to get real in depth in this, but when we talk about what side of the line to bevel on, the thing I always tell people is always remember you're pushing background down. Background is always in the background, right? So you're pushing it down. So this all right here would be considered background. This is what we're trying to lift up. So you always face your beveler to where the heel is going to push away behind that. And if you want to know on a line like this series of lines here, which side of the line should you bevel that on, follow it out until it gets to background or outside of the pattern. And so if we follow this, say this line right here, I don't know what side to bevel on, follow it out till it gets into a piece of background, and that'll tell you. Since this is off the pattern or out of the pattern, then your beveler would go on like that. And you will stay on that side of the line all the way till it ends. You never switch sides. So that's kind of just a real quick, easy way to kind of figure out where you need to be. So now we've gotten all of our longer lines. I'm going to go ahead and use a smaller beveler, just the next size down. I recommend having a few size bevelers because you know, one isn't going to do everything you need to do. So you'll need like a pretty small one, and then a medium sized one, and then a fairly large one. I think I'm up to 4 or 5 different size bevelers, but you can't have enough of those, and they come in different finishes. So you can have a smooth, a checkered, a lined, a vertical. There's all kinds of different style bevelers, but just a good little 3-piece set of some checkered bevelers will be a great place to start. And all I'm doing now is just getting all the little lines I couldn't get with that bigger beveler. Okay, now we'll work on the numbers. Okay, and one little trick here, we're going to take this small lifter. This is a fairly small lifter. We're just going to pop that right there. That's going to take care of that number 4, and then we'll also do a very similar thing with the next size up right here in this 0, just to get that top knocked down just a little bit. And now there's not a lot of background on this piece, but I am going to use a bar grinder here, and that is going to put these little dots in there as a background. The size of this one is a 35, which is the size of the holes. I would recommend, if you've never run bar grinders, just buy the 45s. That's going to make it a lot easier to learn how to run these, because they're not like a matting tool. You're going to have to learn and practice how to run those, because they just kind of sit right by each other. But if you want to try bar grinders, that's the size I would recommend. And as you can see, this pattern does not have a lot of background, obviously. And so what I like to do is just come in here, and in anywhere these vines make a V shape, I just add just a little bit right there and just fan it out. That'll just add you a little bit of contrast and a little bit of color on this open border pattern. Basically, there's no line border on this. Okay, and so now we'll take I'm going to use a horizontal lined thumbprint. It's fairly small. We're going to use that because the vine work on here is so small. And I'm just going to, I like to drag my thumbprints a little bit. So as you can see there, it's just, I'm kind of dragging it back just a little bit. And so always remember, with any kind of pear shader or thumbprint, they are shaders. So you don't have to, you're not limited by just the shape and size of the tool. You can walk it around, drag it, and that'll really give you a little bit more control and a little bit more finesse in your shading. Now I'm going to switch to my vertical line pear shader, and I'm going to use that, or thumbprint. I'm going to use it right here. We're just going to get a little color on this particular type of vine where it kind of flips over itself. Just adds a little color in there, and then we'll hang off the edge just a little bit and just make us a little bit of an indentation and a little bit of color right there on that little scroll. It takes a little practice to get real efficient at that, but just make you just a real light indentation, and then you can go harder if you want. You can get a little bit more depth there to get a little bit more color. and put one in that little pod there. Okay, so we've got all the pear shading done. I like to take this little sunburst thing or seed burst. It's got a little dot right there and then some lines that come off of it. And I like to put those right there just to give you a little something there. And then we'll take a little small mule's foot, which is that little tool there. Come in all kinds of sizes, but do them kind of where they cascade down and kind of get lighter as they go. And I like to put them every so often, usually at the spots of direction changes or anywhere you got kind of a little blank area that you want to dress up a little bit. Okay. And then I like to, you don't have to, but I like to go back through once I'm done before I do my decorative cuts. I like to go back through on our floral and just relift with the main lifters and just kind of clean up any curves. Because sometimes during the beveling and pear shading and all your tool work, sometimes that stuff will lay down just a little bit, and I want to get them lifted up so we've got that depth. So we'll go back here. We're just dressing up these little curves a little bit. That's all we're doing. All right. So basically the tooling is all completed, and so now what we'll do is go through and add our decorative cuts. And these are, we've mentioned it many times, but these are kind of your signature. A great way to get better at these is to just have swivel knife practice just on some scrap leather. You can do it at the kitchen table in the mornings while everybody's asleep, while you're drinking coffee if you want. You can do it in your chair while you're watching the news. It doesn't take a bench and everything else to practice your swivel knife, so there's really no excuse to not practice it. But you'll begin to come up with movements that you use on certain aspects of your tooling that become very indicative of your work. And that's kind of, a lot of toolers can recognize somebody else's work solely on the decorative cuts. So that's what you want to practice on. And there you have it. There's our little Christmas tree ornament all finished up. All right, so here we're going to tool the Christmas ball. We have a little holly leaf, what I call a holly leaf kind of pattern. The guy that I learned to build saddles from, he used a lot of these types of leaves in a lot of his work, and so I don't use them very often, but we're going to give it a whirl here on this Christmas ball. And much like the other video, I like to carve any kind of lettering or any of that type of stuff, lettering, brands, names, anything like that. I like to get that carved first just so that I know that I have it where I want it. And again, with your swivel knife, you want to be sure that you're carving down into the leather. Don't just scratch the top of the leather. If this is one of your first tooling projects, don't be scared to get that blade down in the leather. Your blade should be sharp and not dull where it's just pushing down into the leather. It needs to be cutting the grain. It's going to ensure a good uniform bevel and that it'll stay down. So now we're going to work here on these little leaves. These are, I'm kind of going off of mistletoe kind of look, whatever, this little Christmas foliage here. And as you can see, when I carve a circle, I don't carve and spin the whole work around. When you're carving a circle, like this little guy right here, basically going to carve a letter C, and then we'll carve the front end of a D. See, that will make a round cut there. Just kind of a little trick if you're trying to figure out how to carve a circular shape. That's how I do it. And then here we'll get all of this carved here, these little leaves. So there's our little Christmas ball. These little holly leaves aren't very complicated. They're pretty much like little oak leaves. You can kind of put them however you need to put them in there. There's not a whole lot of room on this little thing. I kind of like that because it makes it easy layout-wise. There's not a lot of flow and scrolls and things like that. And what we're going to do is we're going to start out with just this little lifter here, this Berry King lifter. You'll notice I use that in a lot of my videos. I've got all sizes of his lifters. And we're going to use that here to get all of these curves. And that's basically what we're trying to do, is just knock that down with a round-toed tool so that we don't have to try to stick a square beveler in there. And so I try to get the size lifter that fits. So you'll see me skip a few of these little spots because we'll come back in with a larger lifter and get those down right quick. And these little vines, they've got much similar little tips on them like that, so we'll just shoot right up underneath there, get that knocked down. Now we'll grab that larger lifter, come in here and get some of that we can't get with the little one. Now we'll get our large beveler. We're going to come in here with the, you always want to use the biggest beveler that you can for whatever given line that you're tooling. Grab a smaller beveler here. This is just the next size down, just a little smaller beveler. That way we can get around some tighter areas. And we're going to go ahead and, while we're here, we'll go ahead and bevel all of these letters, or numbers, and get all these numbers beveled up. I went ahead and gave it a little bit of water. It was just getting a little bit dry. You want to be sure and not over case your leather. You don't want to put too much water on it because it can start getting really mushy. You want it to have some firmness to it, but not where there's water coming out of it all over the place, because if those fibers get too cased up, they're going to really mush around on you. So you want some stability in that leather. Get all these other little bitty lines that we didn't get, and then we'll go ahead and get these little cranberries or whatever they are. We'll bevel all around those. If you had a big flower center that was just like a cedar, a real large cedar, that would be perfect right here. And if you do have one of those, I wouldn't even bother carving those circles on the pattern. Just use that cedar and just pop those in there before you carve it. And that will save you a lot of trouble right there. A lot of people make the like circles like that of different sizes for cedars or whatever. Getting the right size would be pretty handy to have right now. Alright, so we've gotten all the beveling done. There's not a lot to it. Like this little holly leaf, like I said, You do this on something larger like a Bible cover or something like that, or a little notebook. A leaf style like this, they're usually pretty quick. Doesn't take a whole lot of work. Now I'm going to use a leaf liner, and you can use whatever you want here. You don't necessarily have to use this, but a leaf liner works really good to really get the vein of that leaf up and add some color down there. And now I'm going to take a vertical line thumbprint, and all I'm going to do is use the heel, and I'm going to get right up here in this point and just put a little bit in each spot of that, on each point. Something like that. Just a couple little, just to give it a little bit of texture. They're a little different vines than what we're used to tooling, so I'm just trying to make them look a little different. And now what I'll do is I'm going to take this veiner. This is just a thin line veiner, and I'm just going to put a bunch of these, walk down here. Very simple. Just like that there. And so now we'll just go in here with our lifters, and we try to get, when you're doing this step, you want to try to get some pretty good lift out of there. You can see how much we've gotten there. But you want to try to get a pretty good little lick in there, and that way you get that depth. That's the only thing. On leaves like this and oak leaves, I really try to get some lift. Not necessarily at the beginning, because you don't want to just distort everything. You want to get everything beveled first, and then when you come in at the very end, you can ask for a little bit more there, and that'll get you that contrast that you want, and it'll work out a lot better. Most people, when they start floral tooling, they're very timid on the tools. You need to, don't be scared to hit them. I mean, you want to break your tool, obviously, but it depends on the weight of leather you're tooling, but you want to get some depth out of this stuff. I'm going to get the next size up for these. Now for me on this kind of leaf, one more right there. For me on this kind of leaf, I don't think there's a whole lot of room for decorative work, decorative carving as far as cuts. But if you want and you see a few spots, you could put a little sets in there or something, because they're really not that type of leaf. I have the same problem when I do oak leaves versus a Sheridan flower or a Sheridan leaf. It's pretty obvious where stuff goes. If we want, we can come in here with a little mule's foot. Just adds a little bit of motion. That's all we're trying to do. And then of course I love to use this little guy, this little sunburst, right at the base of my leaves. Alright guys, so that's our round ornament here. Like I said, if you want the pattern, there's a link down in the description. You can grab that pattern and tool this. Tool it any way you want. You can use different tools. You don't need a bunch of fancy tools to make a Christmas ornament. One of the, just beginner sets of stamps from Tandy would work fine, or anything else. I know Joe Melling's got some new stamps, or some beginner set stamps and swivel knives, things like that. If you just ran across our channel in this video and you think you'd like to try to make a Christmas ornament, those are great places to start, and you can grab our free pattern and give it a whirl. Pretty simple. All right, guys, so that's tooling 2 different style of Christmas ornaments there. I hope you enjoyed that. Like I said, this one here has got a little holly leaf pattern, and I may have mentioned that, but the man I learned to build saddles from, he did a lot of this type of leaf on a lot of different saddles and stuff. A lot of his older patterns were that, and I kind of enjoyed doing that and bringing that back. I haven't tooled them hardly at all in our work, but they're really fun to tool. They're quick to tool, and so they're kind of fun. And then, of course, the Christmas tree. Again, you can get the free pattern for this. There'll be a link down in the description straight to it, but if you forget it or can't find it, just go to dgsaddlery.com, click on the online store. Then when you're in there, just underneath the Leathercraft tab, you'll see free digital patterns. You can go on there and grab this pattern and then print it out on your own printer and tool along with us. If you are wanting some of these clicked out, we did have dies made for these, and so we're putting some of those on the website. So if you do want some of those, you can definitely get these for making them however you want to, drawing your own patterns on there, making those as stocking stuffers or just neat little gifts for family and friends and stuff like that. I appreciate you guys watching. I hope you had a fantastic Thanksgiving, and we're excited to get into the Christmas season and get this weekend behind us so we can all gear up and start making the gifts that we need to make for our Christmas season out of leather and doing that kind of thing. And we always appreciate you guys watching here. Be sure to go to dgsaddlery.com, sign up for the Leathercraft newsletter, and we'll see y'all in the next video.